Yeah, that's all BS.
Today we're back talking Ferrari, but not just any Ferrari, the Ferrari Testarossa, one of the most iconic Ferraris of the 80s. I mean, when you think about Ferrari of the 80s, there's really three cars you think about. Absolutely the F40. You guys know we got the blue F40. What an amazing car that is. And then there's probably the 308 and the 328 cars that you think of when you think of Magnum PI. But the other big one, I think it's F40 and it's Testarossa. I mean, this is just iconic 1980s Ferrari at its best. I think the car still looks iconic today. We all remember this car in white, Don Johnson, Miami Vice. I mean, it didn't get much cooler than that when I was growing up. And what's crazy about the Testarossa is there's so much more to the Testarossa, and I grew up with this car than what even I realized. About a year ago, I decided, just got on a kick. I had to have a Testarossa, and I started going down that rabbit hole. Testarossa actually came in several different variations over the years. Early 80s, you had the 512 BB and then the 512 BBI. I think those actually were in the late 70s, like 78, 79, somewhere in there. That became the Testarossa in the mid 80s. Then from there, they had what's called the 512 TR. That was a big evolution of the original Testarossa of the mid 80s. And those cars, many people consider that to kind of be the Goldilocks, because there's three main variations of the Testarossa. So there was the original Testarossa, the 512 TR, and like I said, they made a lot of really good improvements over the original Testarossa, better suspension, the car got more power, got a little more reliable, better electronics, I believe better braking, better steering. But the very end of the run, they made the 512M. M stands for Modificata. This is where Ferrari just went all out on the Testarossa. Some changes, some great changes, some that are opinions vary. For example, all those years they had those super cool pop-up headlights. I think they looked awesome. I love them. The original Testarossa had them. The 512 TR had them. The 512M was the first time Ferrari went away from the pop-up headlights on their big V12 car. The rear end looks a little different, redesigned back there, but they went with a stiffer suspension, tried to make this car handle better than the original two iterations did, and gave it a little bit more power in the car. So, if you guys may remember, I bought this car actually October of last year. We took it to Cavallino in January in Palm Beach, Florida. This car had won platinum before, back in 07 at Cavallino. Then it had been in Dubai, it had been on display in Dubai, and then we bought it. The car had basically been a garage queen and a show queen for a good percentage of its, in fact, the majority of its life. I bought it because it did have great pedigree. 512M, which this one is, they only made 75 for the US market, and Ferrari numbered them. So they're numbered, they're numbered on the car, 1 through 75. This one's actually number 66. I don't really know why, but I think that number's cool as hell. I actually love the fact this number is 66. I didn't know it was 66 when we negotiated the deal, and then we went to do the final inspection of the car, and I opened up the front flap where the head unit is, because it's hidden behind a leather compartment there. Actually kind of cool. And there's a plaque right there. It shows that yours is number 66. So the car had been most of its life a garage queen and a show queen. It had not really been driven hard. Really not been driven a lot, much at all. We got the car, we were proud to have it. I drove it a little bit, and then it was time to get it show ready. So we sent it to the guys there at Curated in Miami. They spent a lot of time with the car, just polishing every little nut and bolt and all the tiny little things that it just were showing a little bit of age, things that I wouldn't have even noticed. You probably wouldn't notice, but the judges that do this, they would have noticed. So got everything up to spec. And the car won platinum again in January. So we were really, really proud about that. But at that point in time, we knew it was time to get home. And I really wanted to drive and enjoy the car. We started driving it. The car ran really great. There was a couple of little things we started noticing. Got it to our mechanic. We brought that review to you guys. We ended up doing a full engine out on the car just because of age, gaskets and seals, and the valves were getting worn and oil was getting into the heads and all that. We took the whole darn thing apart, redid everything, redid the valves, reseated all the valves, all the seals, all the gaskets, rehoned the engine. It is completely brand new now. I got it back earlier this week. I've already put well over 200 miles on the car, and it is running absolutely cherry. That flat 12-cylinder engine is really unique. You think about it, this was the very end of the line for that flat 12-cylinder engine from Ferrari. This car revs with this just butter creamy smooth rev range, the way it goes through, the way the power delivery, it's very, very different than any V12 you or I have ever driven before in our lives. But we always looked at it like a really amazing sports car, right? And when you watch it on Miami Vice and on TV and how it was ever depicted in movies, it was always like this amazing sports car. So I had this idea of what this car was like to drive. And I'm here to tell you, now that I've got it home, she's been fully worked through mechanically, she doesn't drive anything like what I thought this car was going to drive like, nothing like what you see in the TV shows and the movies, and nothing like what you think it's like to drive. So let's get it out on the road, and let me tell you what it's really like to drive the most iconic version of the Ferrari Testarossa. I gotta start with that engine. Revs just with this creamy, smooth power delivery, and the way that it revs and the sound is just really beautiful, almost symphonic sound to the way that it revs. The power delivery is incredibly butter smooth. I honestly have to wonder, and I'm sure they had very good reason, but why did Ferrari discontinue this engine? Why did they go away from that flat 12 cylinder engine and go to the V12? And obviously, listen, God knows I love a V12 from Ferrari for sure, but this has just got a power delivery and a rev range, the way it builds to the rev range like no other engine I've ever driven in my life. Usually I describe the way cars are visceral and raw, and that's usually what I like in cars, and mechanical and involving and engaging. And this is most certainly involving and engaging. Let's not forget, coupled with this glorious 12-cylinder engine is this beautiful 5-speed gated manual. I mean, and listen, that was what really made me think I really need a Testarossa in my collection. It was an iconic car of my age, my era for sure, and I think still is for Ferrari to this day. I mean, I've yet to go to a car show and meet a young man or a young lady that's into cars, or even remotely has any interest in cars at all, and not know immediately, oh, it's a Testarossa, oh my God, it's a Testarossa, and that's always a really cool part. But this is just such an iconic car for Ferrari. And I just felt like I really had to have one in my collection. It was a part of my era, my growing up, and I think a huge part of Ferrari's history. You look at the fact that it was the end of the flat 12, and this is the very last variant that Ferrari ever used that engine in, and then it was still back in the day when everything came with the manual gearboxes, this one being a gated manual. Well, it checks all the boxes. It's iconic. Into the era of a very time-defining engine, of an iconic car with a gated manual. Are you kidding me? I mean, what other boxes are there to tick when you're looking at adding something iconic to your collection, and something that's just a real joy to drive? It's got a clutch that's heavy enough to feel engaging. Think more like Porsche 997 GT3 or GT3 RS. This car is what, 29 years old. 29 years old. And this gearbox shifts just really beautifully. It's got that great, I mean, come on, right there, where you notch it into gear, you feel that engagement, you feel the way it slides into gear and slots into that gated slot there. On top of all that, it's just downright cool. Let's just face it, gated manuals, they're the king of cool when it comes to gearboxes, in my opinion. The car's got great visibility. You've got a big windshield out front, plenty of visibility out the back, side windows, mirrors. That's really, really great. I mean, actually fantastic view all the way around the car for sure. And then the air conditioning in this car actually blows really cold. I mean, I keep having to dial it down. That's all manual. You look at these controls here, you got your dial left and right for cool to hot, and you can blend the two as you go back to hot or whatever. And it's fan speed. There's no, hey, let me set it to 72 degrees and hit auto. No, none of that. The gauges, oh my God, these Veglia gauges with that old school orange color. Obviously, they're all analog. They look so cool. Very great visibility on these things, but they are just flat out cool. We're watch guys too. Yeah, I love the fact that it's got this little clock in here, and it works absolutely perfectly. In fact, yep, it's dead on time with the watch here, keeping great time. Really, really cool. They did the interior on this car too. Got this center section here that flips up. That shows where your head unit is for your stereo. and then of course you've got that really cool badge F512M, and it shows what chassis number the car is. In fact, you know what? Let's rev her out a little bit here. It moves. This engine pulls and pulls hard for sure. Yeah, so you got the center console, or the center section there where your head unit is, and then you got this really cool button right here. You hit it and out pops the glove compartment. It's got this huge mirror, so date night, or you got a significant other or friend sitting in the passenger seat, you've got this massive mirror, to check their makeup, power their nose, or whatever it is they need to do. Really cool the way they did the lights up here. You got this one light here for the kind of the center dome light, but then the other one that I always thought was really cool is you hit this button here and you've got this little swivel light, almost like what you would see like in an airplane, right? And you can swivel it around and point it exactly where you're trying to get light, and allows you to light up one little section of the car without lighting up the entire interior of the car. Really cool feature. Just something really cool that, like, why'd they quit doing that? That's awesome. Steering. We got to talk about the steering. This car does not have power steering. But listen, that's not that big a deal. My F40 doesn't have power steering. I've had other Ferraris. We used to have the 348, did not have power steering, and it really was no big deal. The Countach doesn't have power steering. Really not a big deal, especially once the car gets rolling at speed. It feels fantastic. It's got weight. It's very direct. I get 100% feedback not having that power steering pump. Yes, I understand the ease of having power steering, but the moment you put that on a steering rack, you begin to lose steering feel because you lose the weightiness of the steering wheel. You're losing a lot of that feedback with how the front tires are loaded with weight, especially under braking, or how light that front end gets when you're under acceleration coming out of a corner and the front end gets light, a little bit lighter because the weight's on the back of the car. It's right where it needs to be. But as we run into some traffic here, when you're at a dead stop or moving, just 2-3 miles an hour or whatever, 5 miles an hour, they're weighty, okay? This car is, if you've got to do a K-turn, or like when we pull it back into our garage and I need to do a little K-turn or shuffle it in or get into a particular parking spot or whatever, at very low speeds, oh my God, this steering is a workout. I've got to grab with both hands and really, of course right here we're moving, but as I come to a complete stop right here, middle of traffic, this is, come on, man. This is literally the heaviest steering. Trying to like parallel park or get into a tight spot where you got to kind of work your way in or whatever, because this is kind of a big car. Don't kid yourself. It is a workout. It is, and I don't really know why. Why is this, non-power steering assisted steering rack? Why at a standstill or very low speeds? Why is this so much heavier than the F40 you get in it? I've never once thought about. I don't even think about the steering in that car when I pull it in or out of the garage, or I'm putting in, backing it into a tight spot or anything like that at very low speeds. You don't even notice it. And so why? These cars are from the same era. The steering rack can't be that different. And why is it so much heavier? This thing reminds me of turning a tractor on the farm when I was a kid growing up. When I'm at a dead stop or like I said, trying to get in and out of tight parking spots and stuff like that. Again, even here, I don't know, we're going, a few miles an hour. I'm just literally idling down, no problem. Let me know in the comments below if you have knowledge or have any mechanical idea of why mechanically this car is just so much heavier at standstill and very low speeds. Why is the steering so damn much heavier? Yep, everybody, the Testarossa is just so iconic. It's everybody's favorite for sure. It makes this car a really fun car to drive because people just absolutely love it. Everyone, like I said earlier, go to any car show or go down the highway or, anywhere you go, everyone knows this car. Now, what's funny is they just think it's a Testarossa. What's really interesting is, unless you really know these cars, and even I, until I got into the market, started educating myself on the Testarossas, I did not know that there were three very distinct variations of this car. I guarantee everybody else going down the road, they just think it's a Testarossa, and they're probably going, I thought the car had pop-up headlights. The reality of it is, this is a big, heavy car. But the brakes in this car are really, really good. And I love the weight of the accelerator in this car. It's got just a little bit of weight behind it, but allows you to really feel the travel back and forth of the throttle. So it makes this car so much more engaging to drive than any of the modern V12s for sure. I mean, even our 599 GTO, which is a 2011, phenomenal driving car, very, very raw. I mean, if you've ever driven or have any experience with a 599 GTB, and then you get into 599 GTO, they are drastically different cars. It drives very, very different, and the driver engagement is very, very different. This is the end of the line here. This was the best evolution of their analog cars before they really started getting so much more modernized. And this is kind of the pinnacle of that. You know, this car, like I said, it's still fast by today's standard. This car will absolutely move. 434 horsepower, and in this car it delivers it in a really fun, engaging way. The comforts in this car, these seats are actually kind of large seats. Very, very comfortable to drive, very, very comfortable to sit in, bonnet or trunk or frunk, whatever you want to call it. It's actually quite spacious. I mean, you could throw a couple small suitcases in there, maybe a couple small suitcases and a duffel bag or two. A lot of space and room up there. This car still comes from that era where Ferrari gives you this beautiful leather satchel or case, whatever you want to call it, and it holds all these tools and belts and fuses and whatnot that go to your car, as if, come on, as if Ferrari owners are really gonna pull over on the side of the road and start working on their own car. I mean, they're beautiful to look at. They add tremendous value to the car if you have the tool set and have it complete. We do in this car, obviously we showed it. And when you do those car shows, they literally ask you to open up the toolkit and lay out everything, and they look and make sure that you have every little extra fuse and bulb and timing belt and wrench that came with the car, and they make sure they're all original. They make sure that none of that stuff has been reproduced or aftermarket or anything like that. So they judge you on that kind of stuff. It's actually really kind of cool to go through and do it. I was oddly nervous whenever they were doing it, weird as well, but I knew that like all the stuff was there. I knew that firsthand, but I don't know, it was like being back in school. It's test day and all of a sudden you're nervous. This car, as I said, had been a show queen for the majority of its life. When I first started driving the car, it was really stiff. I mean like GT3 RS stiff. And I thought that was kind of odd, and I thought, well, you know, the car's aging. Maybe it's time for, you know, new suspension, shocks, ball joints, you know, struts, etc. You guys got to see the mechanic that I take my cars to, especially my older Ferraris, who's just the best guy in Texas for sure, one of the best in the country. So I talked to him about the suspension. He says, listen, Lewis, car's been sitting, those fluids get stiff and hard, you need to drive it, which I really appreciate, because you know what? Most mechanics would have taken advantage of that opportunity and probably charged me, I don't know, $17,000, $20,000, I'm guessing, whatever they could, to tell me that, oh, the car needs all new suspension because of age and all this different stuff. And you know what? He was absolutely right. I've driven this car a little over 200 miles now since we got the engine back in it, and it has absolutely gotten much more compliant. But part of the modificata for the 512M that Ferrari did in this car was they stiffened up the suspension from the original Testarossa and the 512 TR. They wanted to make the car have less body roll in the corners, handle a little bit more like a sports car, and have more agility. And so they did stiffen up the suspension in this car. And so that brings me to the interesting fact about this car. Hollywood lied to us. All those years of the Testarossa being featured in movies and in Miami Vice, it was always high-speed chases, and you see the car cornering and doing all these, you know, high-speed maneuvers that require like great agility. That is BS. That is not what this car is all about at all. This car is a grand touring car. Don't kid yourself, that's what it is. Yes, it looks as cool as they come. Yes, it's iconic Ferrari for sure. With this being a mid-engined 12-cylinder car, I thought it would handle exactly like I've seen in the movies and in the TV shows all these years. And no, it does not. This is a grand touring car. This is the car you get in, you look absolutely tremendously cool, because Testarossa is one of the coolest looking cars ever made of all time. You get this glorious flat 12 and this fantastic gated manual. And in the 512 Modificata, you get the stiffer suspension, but you do not get a very agile sports car. Absolutely not. That is not what this is. So I actually kind of think this car's got a little bit of a identity conflict, if you will. It's fast for its time. It's mid-engine. It's gated manual, stiff suspension, but it does not handle or rotate like a true sports car does. Absolutely not. If you want to get something that's fast, or I should say that's got a lot of great agility, you can throw around corners, you can handle really well, you're getting a 355. Exact same year, Ferrari, 1995, but that mid-engine V8, it has that sports car agility. This car has got all the elements that you would think would make it a great handling sports car, but it is not. You kind of get this, I don't want to say best of both worlds, you get some of both worlds, right? I get in this car, I get to hear this great sounding 12-cylinder engine. I get to work through the gears with a fantastic gearbox, a fantastic clutch, great feel in the steering. I just don't want to be at low speeds because it's god awful at low speeds. It's a Grand Touring car, so I can still take my wife out to dinner or whatever. She's completely content and happy and comfortable over there. She's got this huge mirror she can check her makeup in and touch her hair up or whatever the heck it is she's doing on the way to dinner. So I get to roll up, look really cool, have some fun driving the car, get to work the gated manual, enjoy that 12-cylinder engine, but I'm not driving it like a sports car. I'm not gonna chuck this around corners and do donuts in it. It just does not have that level of agility. At the end of the day, it is an iconic 12-cylinder, end of the line from Ferrari, with a great gated manual gearbox, a lot of luggage space. It's a gentleman's car. That's what this car is. This is a gentleman driver's car, and that's exactly what this is. And if that's what Ferrari was after, I say they nailed it. Hollywood should have been a little more forthright with us in what this car was really all about. Yeah, so this may not be the greatest sports car of the late 80s and early 90s. No, this is not the car you're going to be doing donuts in and power slides and holding it in as you go around the corner. That's not what this car is all about at all, for sure. But what is this car? This car is absolutely amazing in its own right. You've got that flat 12-cylinder engine that's got literally one of the most, actually the most symphonic, beautiful, creamy rev tones, and the way it revs all the way through the gearbox, all the way up and down the rev range is absolutely, truly nothing short of beautiful. It's absolutely glorious. The car is extremely comfortable to ride in. So, hey, everybody wins on date night. My wife gets to ride in a car that's comfortable. She looks stunning getting in and out of, and I get to drive an amazing 12-cylinder engine that's into the era. This is the last car that Ferrari put that flat 12-cylinder engine in. This was it. This was the end of the line right here. Only one of 75. And I've got a gated manual transmission. The car sounds amazing. It looks amazing. It drives fantastic. It is a luxurious Grand Touring GT car, but with a gated manual, a glorious 12-cylinder engine, plenty of cargo space to take this thing on long weekends, long journeys, whatnot. Wife's happy in the passenger seat, car's comfortable, great AC, great riding car. I get to drive one of the most iconic cars of the 80s. So what does that make this car? That's what makes this car an icon. This car is an experience to drive. There's nothing else like it. There's nothing else today with that kind of engine, a gated manual, rides and handles like this, and let's face it, nothing today looks like this thing.